Well, hello. Welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast. Excited you are here. Golly, the world changes so fast, right?
Yes,
everything just kind of shifts around, and wherever we're at, we normally pre-record these, so I know the day may be changing and life may be changing quickly. But we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're listening. Thanks again for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. So hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. It always helps us, I think, know what to do next, or know that what we're doing is helpful. So back with Jed, of course, Trevor here, excited to continue our conversations and learning how to learn, and loving doing it.
Yeah.
So I know today's going to be just a little bit different, I think, with the chaos of the upcoming semester and school and the summer kind of being full swing. And then I think once summer hits full swing, I think it's one of those things where you're sitting in your house, it's boiling hot. You're recognizing it's not going to stay this way forever, but then your eyes kind of slowly turn towards the fall. And you're like, now what?
Dude, I'll just say I got my summer tan. It's a forearm, left arm, top of the knee, left knee.
From driving? That's called trucker arm, bro. Some people know what that is.
That's all the color I get.
Oh, my gosh. Bro, we're gonna set you outside for like 2 hours and just come out there and roll you over.
All right. Give me a laptop or something.
Well, dude, facts. Well, today I want to do something a little different, something we've never done before, but I think is helpful. And it comes from another podcast. Carey Nieuwhof had a podcast a few weeks back that I listened to that he had Henry Cloud on. And Henry Cloud is just a great guy that wrote a book with John Townsend called Boundaries back in the day. Great psychiatrist and psychologist, but a Christian guy. Cool. Talks about what life. And one of the things he referenced on there was that when people are in a emotionally traumatic or in a unsettling, uncertain time, in his studies or in his counseling, he would tell them certain things. And he feels like it translates really well to our current status. So, his world might be the counseling or life coach, but he feels like with where we're at, we kind of all need a life coach. Right now, we kind of all need somebody to kind of sit down with us and tell everything, tell us everything's going to be okay and that we can work through this and we can learn and grow. Because I do think even though we're trying to physically keep ourselves from getting sick through lots of different means and applications, there's a psychological toll that's going on behind the scenes that really can have detrimental effects.
Yeah.
And I can feel that with my kids. I can feel that in my marriage. I feel that with my friends. I can feel that in our larger church, just like, hey, we're just desperate to be around each other. And so, it's a little bit like not forever, not now, but not forever.
Yeah.
No, for now, not forever. It's kind of one of the things, and I know we're going to get back together again, and it won't always be this way. But so one of the things he encourages his kind of clients and his people he's counseling is the same thing he would encourage us. And so I wanted to do that exercise, but then also call us all back to this simple principle. And the principle is when you're in chaos, to go back to the basics. And I don't know if we're going to do a sermon series on this. We probably will in the fall at some point. But it's going to be the concept of remembering and helping yourself get back to the things that really matter. Not letting the things you hear out in the world, not letting the worries and the stresses, kind of steal your, sober mind, your joy, your clarity, and letting those kind of things. So if you didn't have those before, or if you were struggling to have those before, this can be a really chaotic time. But if you had those before, it can be sometimes just a general thought of you going, okay, I need to go back to what was helpful. And so I wrote down a few of them, but as you're thinking through this, like maybe you can even evaluate, because Jed, I told him this is what we're going to talk about. And I said, I'd really like you to just kind of be here to be a part of the discussion. But as you're thinking about this, because I just laid this concept out to you, so just like you, the viewer, are watching,
I'm right there with you.
Think about what the basics were. What would be a baseline for you? I wrote just a few down because these are some of the ones that I thought about over the last couple of days as I heard that. Number one for me is that an unplug time is key for me. That's without a political year, without the pandemic, without all the craziness online or with the discussions. Having a set amount of time that I unplug, maybe it's an hour a day, minimum. Maybe it's a full day. Maybe it's longer than that. Maybe it's, for me, not letting the phone be the first thing I look at in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not letting that be the first interaction I have. I fought for that for a long time. I've gotten bad at that.
Yeah,
Like,
me too. Yeah.
it was one of those things that, like, I would fight to have the first conversation with my kids or my wife, or to have the first conversation be another human being
Yeah.
before I would get online.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of a rule of mine to kind of let the real world have the first voice.
Yeah.
Even Ravi, right? Ravi would say the first voice you need to listen to is God. So
Yeah.
just let it be just quiet, like, hey, if you need to say something, not saying you have a burning bush every morning, but like that unplugged time, I think we need that more than ever. I really do. I think we need to be intentional and let that be a default again.
Yeah.
And I think if you can put it at the same time every day, or have it be a consistent thing in some way, it makes it even more powerful.
Yeah.
Because you start to depend on it. You start to look forward to it. It starts to have a longer effect than just, one day of clarification. And I think also some days it doesn't have the huge effect, and then other days it is a lifeline when things get really, really stressful. So again, a basic. Plan some unplugged time.
Yeah.
Second, read a verse or a couple verses of the Bible a day. Read a verse or a couple verses of the Bible a day. And I know that sounds like whatever. This is basic.
Yeah.
This is just basic. One of the things that I catch myself doing a lot is that I will get on everything on my phone that I want to link, but I won't click the Bible app.
Yeah.
And I won't even read the verse of the day. But I'll click everything else on it.
Yeah.
But I won't click that. And I'm like, right?
You know how often I get the verse of the day notification and I just swipe it?
You swipe over, right? Like, I'm like, what the heck is that? And then, you know how I get the verse of the day? Someone's Facebook feed.
Yeah.
And you know how not helpful that is? It's just not, because you know what you associate it with? That person. And you compare.
Yeah.
And then you feel guilty because you didn't look at it already, and it doesn't have the same. I'm not saying you can't use it. I'm not saying it's not good to post. I'm just saying it's different when you go to that basic level of intentionality and you just go. And I will tell you, if you're starting this for the first time or you haven't done this before, read the same verse for a whole week.
Yeah.
Just read one verse, let it sink in, let it be something. Find the verse of the day on Monday and go back to it Tuesday, Wednesday, and just memorize it, work on it. Let it just be enough. It doesn't have to be a lot. We used to say it all the time, 5 minutes a day can change the rest of your days, right? If you just spent 5 minutes reading a couple verses or memorizing a verse or letting it just sink in, it's a basic thing.
Yeah. I think that's something that I even picked up over the last semester, is that is repetition is often more important than quantity.
Yep.
Like, I think you often, whether it's through a Bible plan or something, you basically rather have your devotion where maybe a couple verses along with someone's thoughts over that verse, or it's how fast can you read the whole Bible.
Yep.
Neither of which are a bad thing.
Nope.
But often you're going to be fed more by reading the same thing over and over again than trying to read a big chunk at a time or trying to work through the whole thing quickly.
Yeah.
For me, even I made it a point for, I don't think I held on to it very long, but for a couple of weeks, the first thing I would do in the morning is kneel down by my bed and say the Lord's Prayer.
Yes, I love
that
it.
was it.
Super basic, right?
Yeah.
But and I know, if you're listening to this, you're like, okay, I grew up in the church, I get that.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just trying to say, in the middle of some of this stuff, I think it's easy for us to just get out of our routines and to kind of reclaim ground and to get back to the bare minimum. There's some certainty in that, and there's some clarity in that can be really, really helpful. The third one is ask for forgiveness.
Oof.
And I know this is crazy, but in the midst of these times, we can write off that it's just crazy, and that we have every excuse to not need to. Everybody just gives everybody extra grace, and it's just get that off your chest, man.
Yeah.
If you've done something, you said something in anger or in anxiety or in fear, if you said something that you regret now, just because normally the thing that would get you to ask for forgiveness, you run into that person, or you see them again. It doesn't happen as often right now.
No.
And that healing that takes place when you ask for forgiveness or you reach out and you do that, it's not just about the relationship, it's inside yourself. It really is a healing aspect of what the gospel is all about. And it is a basic thing that needs to be done a lot of times that I feel like right now just gets overlooked. And I've done it several times with people where I'm just like, bro, that was a poor reaction in a moment that did not reflect how I really feel. And I thought about it, and I need you to know I'm sorry. And would you forgive me? I'm telling you, if we can be real enough to do that now before we get back together, I would love to not have to like repair 1,000 relationships when we start to get, like I'd love that. I'd love to come out of this healthier relationally than broken.
Man, I'll tell you, the most impactful sermon I've ever heard was Shane Wood, professor at Ozark.
Yes.
The first time I heard him speak.
I'm mad it's not me. But you can I'll ask for your forgiveness later. I'm just kidding. Please keep going. Shane Wood, he's a professor or something. I don't know. I blanked out there. Gosh, that's such an arrogant jerk. All right, keep going.
No, professor at Ozark, he first time I heard him speak at a chapel, he honestly can't remember the context of the entire
That's normally
sermon,
how it works. That's how it works.
But he ended his sermon by saying sorry to every person in the room he felt he had wronged in any way. Like literally, one of them was like, I think it was Teresa Welch, like, who's another professor there. He was just like, I'm sorry for playing my music too loud. Like, he went down to the basics of that just like that
so
low.
Powerful.
It was dang. Like I think I spent the next week like apologizing to people for like.
Well, and, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but holding a grudge or holding on to something like that is like eating rat poison and expecting the other person to die. Like there's a certain poison that sits in your chest. Doing the research in your own soul to figure out the places that you need to ask for forgiveness is a basic thing that can get so easily overlooked.
Yeah.
We can just push through it. The pandemic is not an excuse to not ask for forgiveness. It's just not. The next one, connect intentionally.
Oof.
You had to do this before the pandemic anyways. I know you don't. I know a lot of people are like, no. And I'm like, listen, it is both harder and easier to connect with people right now. People are desperate for it. You need a connection. And what I mean by that is not calling and going, what's up, man? How you doing? And what are you doing? No, I mean calling and saying something like, hey, I need somebody to talk to. Or calling and going, hey, man, I know you're probably lonely and you're hurting. I just want to be there for you. Can I pray for you? Are you okay? Checking on people, calling and connecting intentionally, either for your own well-being or theirs. It's never going to change. Whether the pandemic ends or not, this is still going to take intentionality. And we can use this as an excuse and we can pretend, well, I can't see him or whatever. But I'm like, nah, that's just an excuse. Like it really is. And it's a basic thing that we're always going to have to do to reach out at that level and to say, I'm willing to invest in another person. I'm willing to ask them. I'm willing to reach out and be vulnerable to grow. I'm willing to reach out and make those relationships because I know it's healthy for me. That is something that the church continually has to do, whether they meet in a building or not. It's still hard. It's just hard. And at a basic level, that's how you grow. And at a basic level, that's how you help others grow. And even though Zoom is not the same as being in the room, and even though FaceTime is not the same as being in the room, and even though the text message has its limitations, and even though a phone call doesn't have facial expressions, those are all incredible tools with the right heart to connect well. And you can utilize those, knowing that there are definitely ways that we're hopeful that we can return to different ways to connect. You can still learn to be intentional with how you connect and go back to the basics of doing that well. I know we get a little fatigue in Zoom. We get a little fatigue in FaceTime. We get a little fatigue in the non-direct. But that's not an excuse to disconnect. It's not an excuse to just stop. You realize the limitations. You realize where you're at. But then you go back to the basics and say it's still worth it. It's still what I need to do. So you have any that you've been thinking about? I know like I just put you on the spot. Is there any like basic things that you're like, oh gosh, this is a really key thing? Because I got one more, but it's a parenting one, and so like I don't want to you don't have the kiddos yet, so I don't want to like But do you have any that you think? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. Like I said, you didn't know the context of what I was going to say, but
no, the one thing I think, and I mean, in some ways, I think it's something that everybody is doing right now, but I guess in its simplicity, just like finding a hobby, just like or returning to a hobby that you kind of,
Yep.
but with the new intensity. I think for me, just playing music, like it's been what I've been encouraged to do the most is try to improve on the guitar. Like, I feel like I'm talking like it's a super deep thing, but it's just like
but the way I would maybe this is the wrong context, but I would say find joy.
Yeah,
Find joy in something.
yeah,
And I know for me, this pandemic can steal all the joy of a day if I let it.
yeah,
Or you can find joy in your day. And I'm not saying that a hobby is always it, but I'm just saying that's a part of like recognizing that God put you on this planet to enjoy things. And so part of that is finding some things that you've been good at, you're gifted at, that you put some time into.
yeah.
And, Netflix is great and there's some great things
while.
out there to watch, but investing in a skill, I know this is super silly and those that are watching are totally going to laugh, but I play Fortnite the same way that you play the guitar. I am learning how to play the game better. I am skill based. I do certain maps that are totally based on mechanics of how I play the game. And I time myself and I look at the matrix and I am trying to get better.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately fun for
Yeah.
me and I enjoy it and it brings me some joy. So I get what you're saying. And I think people don't give themselves permission sometimes to do that, to give themselves permission to find a hobby and to enjoy it. Now there's limitations too.
I think even beyond that, though, it's like I agree with everything you're saying. I think that's the a great like baseline for it. And even another one in that is doing something with an intentionality and a purpose. I think the purpose can be as simple as find joy. For me, working on my guitar skills also has the purpose of just making me better.
Absolutely.
Making me more versatile, making it so that I can play in more applications than just worship music.
For sure. And playing in a band and playing in worship is the next level of the guitar skill. If you don't have the guitar skill, you can't play in the band. And it's the same with me. I have all kinds of relationships and people that I play with, and I want to play at a high level and I want to enjoy it. If I'm not good at the game,
no one wants to play with
me. I don't want to play, and no one wants to play with me. Right? Like that's just part of it. And so no one wants to get beat every single time and play the game. And so just like anybody that plays softball or anybody that plays, it's like part of it's fun to just go out there and play. But if you just get your bootay kicked every time, like you're not having a good time. So that is the other side. I agree with you 1,000%. Though, if you can find a hobby that moves you feel like in a forward direction with purpose. Absolutely.
And literally like the intentionality of purpose, like it doesn't necessarily have to be anything that will make you money or will, it doesn't have to have that kind of like really practical purpose. The purpose could be, I like it. I want to do that.
Well, and like you just said, it enriches your life in a way that sometimes isn't always measurable by dollars and cents. My relationships that I've made over that community that I've built have been some of the best conversations, the best things, and encouragements, the places that I feel like God has reached in, because I have had that over the last year and a half, especially with my friend Danny, that I really enjoy. And he and I just connect that. He lives in Ohio. We've never seen, we haven't seen each other in years, but we're very close. And it's purely come through that. And so I know with the band and some of the things, it allows you to play all over the, the state, and it lets you play, different places and different bands and different people, not only here at Kingsway. And you've made friends through that, and some very technically good friends. So and they have pretty guitars and they let you borrow them.
That's the truth. And that's the only reason.
Jonathan, I'm looking at you. So, well, cool. Well, the last thing I was just going to say is that, it's the same thing that I've said to parents. And I know you need to hear this just because I think it's important. That when you have somebody that is in your life, maybe like your mom and dad, like me, who is a parent. When I talk to parents right now, it is a difficult time to parent. There's a lot of uncertainty. Kids are starting to ask different questions. They're unsettled. They feel like they're missing opportunities. There's even a portion of us that are just scared that our kids are going to get sick, or that one of us are going to get sick and we're not going to be here. or that we're leaving them like a half burned world as a future. And so one of the things that I've just wish I could look at parents and just say, hey, go back to the basics. It's the same thing that I had a guy named Don in my life that said over me when I had my first son. And he just said, you need to believe that God picked you to be your son's dad, and that he chose you and he put that gift in your hands intentionally, and you're exactly who he wants as that kid's dad. And I think if you can get back to the basic of believing that God can still use you, and that as a parent, that he chose you to be that parent, and that, you need to learn and grow and figure some things out, but you've been given that great gift and calling intentionally, and that he picked you on purpose. It wasn't an accident. And it's not something that if you feel a little overwhelmed or scared or whatever, that's okay. That doesn't change the fact that you're still worthy to fulfill and walk in that gift. And I think if that resounds with parents and they let that kind of be at the back of their mind, they'll give themselves a little more grace when things get irritable or voices get raised or their kid acts out. And then also they'll give a little bit more purpose and intentionality in saying, okay, if I have been called to this standard, maybe I do need to ask some different questions about how I can move forward and get in their face, get on your kid's level, look them in the eyes, tell them you love them. You'll never regret it. And that's exactly who God's called you to be. So, hey, back to the basics, right? Back to the basics. Unplug, read a verse every now and then, intentionality, ask for some forgiveness, find a hobby with some purpose, and remember that God has called you exactly where you're at, and then you leverage that influence, whether it's a parent, whether it's a professional life, whether it's just with the people around you. So I think if we do that, this pandemic doesn't steal everything. I think we can come out stronger. We can remember where we came from and where we're going. That doesn't change some of those basic things that we need to do. So thanks so much for tuning in. If we missed some of the basics that you feel like are really important, that are keys in your life that you've been clinging to, that you've kind of gone back to, stripped things back and said, hey, if I just do this, this gives me clarity. Hope, please put those in the comments. I'd love to see those.
Please.
But thanks so much for tuning in today. You guys have a great and glorious day in the Lord. Remember to get back to the basics. We're going to get through this. God is still good. He is faithful, and we are his. So love you guys. We'll see you later.